There it is. There's the trail. That's where we're going to put a whole bunch of units.
Just so you know.
This letter says they can't put fill in.
We get a lot.
They don't want to have to follow.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I'd like to welcome each of you here tonight. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you will stand, we will have our invocation and our Pledge of Allegiance. Let's pray, please. Heavenly Father, we ask that you would join us here in this chamber tonight. We did ask, Lord, that you would help us to be extremely mindful of this time of year and the many thanks that we have to give to you for all the blessings that you have provided to us. You have blessed this city in so many ways, and we give you thanks and praise for that tonight. Lord, we especially ask tonight that you would bless the loved ones of Frank Gornick, the young man that was tragically killed in an accident over the weekend. Heavenly Father, we just ask that you would especially be with them and help them to know that this city mourns with them, that our hearts are broken as theirs are broken. We just ask, Lord, that you would guide them and direct them, that you would help us tonight and as we make decisions for our city. We just ask that they will be in the best interest of those citizens that we serve. And we make our prayer in your Son's name. Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on our agenda, as always, is our audience for visitors, and it is at this time. If there's anyone in our audience that would like to address council on any issue, we'd be happy to hear from you now. Mr. Carmines. Take your coat off, Ray. Does that mean you're going to be here a while? Or?
No, I'm going to try to stick it within 5 minutes, although if I could get a warning with about 30 seconds left, I'd like to talk, have a closing statement. My name is Ray Carmine. I've lived in Poquoson, wow, almost 83 years, except for World War II in the Navy, and 5 years at Virginia Tech, compliments of the government, thank goodness, for being in the Navy, GI Bill. I've been here, and I've been dealing with environmentalists for a long, long time, and I find that we don't have many friends amongst the environmental community. Poquoson doesn't. Because the worst argument I ever got into was when I was on the planning commission back in the 50s with a lady who said, what we ought to do is move everyone over to Poquoson, put them in army trucks, and send them 50 to 100 miles inland. This place shouldn't exist. She was an environmentalist. But tonight I'm going back and I'm going to talk about early Poquoson and the fact that we have been a progressive community. We've always had some people but against everything. Going back right after the turn of the century, go back to say 1910, my grandmother had a home at the end of Poplar Road. Wasn't Poplar Road then, but it was a green house down there. Later became Poquoson's haunted house. And she had 2 rooms upstairs that she let teachers live in when they came to Poquoson. So we always been progressive, and then we had people in Poquoson that wanted to have not just 2-room schools, but a high school. And we had a lot of people who were against that. I mean, that's wrong. We're farmers and watermen, and all we need is 2-room schools, maybe 2 of them. And because anybody can walk 2 miles to school. My dad used to ride a horse to school and dress while he was going and eating breakfast sometimes when he was on that horse going to high school. But the fact that a lot of people were against it because, after all, you could learn to read and write and add and subtract in a 2-room schoolhouse, so why have a high school? That was a waste of money and foolish. Later on, we got into a lot of other things in Poquoson because back when I was started in high school, we had no city water. No thanks to the environmentalists, we may not have city water for my children or grandchildren to either bathe in or drink. Say my great-great-great-grandchildren. if they're in Poquoson, on this peninsula. But anyway, we go back to many, many years ago, and well, there was no TV, not much of anything, no telephones, no electricity, no city water, toilet a couple hundred feet behind your house if you were lucky. And all of us had assignments. When we came from school, you got up the eggs and you fed the chickens and you filled up the wood box if you expected to have heat or have your mother cook anything for you that night. And I had to trim the lamps when I was a freshman in high school if I wanted to see, one on each side of the table so I could read. We didn't have anything, hardly, in those days. Lucky to the Rutan group and other groups in the community, they started working toward getting a water supply, electricity, and it was wonderful. We got electricity in parts of Poquoson. Now, we didn't have electricity on what is now Poplar Road in a lot of Poquoson, and we didn't have telephones either, although I think Clayton Rollins had a telephone in his house, and I could go down there on Saturday nights and call my girlfriend in the 7th grade. She was Dolly Messick. I hope she won't mind me saying that. Anyway, we had no sewer. We couldn't have a farm fresh. We couldn't have a food line. We couldn't have any business. We couldn't have anything. We didn't have a sewer. In the 50s, I got involved in the Planning Commission in Poquoson and remained on this Planning Commission for 15 years. And in the 60s, I luckily became your vice mayor, and only four years on the council because my opponent was much smarter than I was, and I was instrumental in fighting to get sewers in Poquoson. And he was smarter than I was, so he put a letter in everybody's paper box that night. If he was elected, nobody would have to hook up to the sewer in Poquoson, pay $300 to hook up to the sewer. So needless to say, I lost by 32 votes. But when it comes to apartments, well, that was the worst thing in the world you could think of in the world for Poquoson. We had people against it, came to all the meetings, they were against it. You know, we don't want people moving into apartments. That's trash and riffraff. And incidentally, I do have a home in Poquoson, but also I'm living in an apartment now. I'm one of the riffraffs that a lot of people thought were destroy the city. Anything we've ever tried to do, there's been a group opposing it. And the problem is that when you bring anyone into this city, every person someone moved in here, we kind of destroy, we kind of interfere with the infrastructure. I mean, we add more people to the schools, more people to the roads, more people to everything. But anyway, we did get our apartments, and with all the objections, we ended up with the city of Newport News providing us a city supply of water. And the Chesapeake Bay and the Sierra Club are totally opposed to getting a nice lake full of fish. And we could have filled it up last week with 9 or 10 inches of rain, but environmentalists seem to be still very much opposed to communities such as ours. And I don't see that many of them are very friendly to us. The Chesapeake Bay Act, the wetlands legislation that was passed, it was a deception. We thought we could have our local wetlands boards and make our own decision. Didn't read the fine print. I talked to a lot of congressmen in Virginia, and they didn't read the fine print either, realizing that we couldn't do hardly anything. We didn't have any control over our wetlands boards. Anybody objected to anything, we had to report it to the Corps of Engineers, everybody and his brother. And we didn't really have final say on anything. And I always used to come to meetings for about 4 years when we were coming up with the Chesapeake Bay Act to remind our citizens that we do have a Fifth Amendment and that many crimes, due to the Chesapeake Bay Act and the wetlands legislation, many crimes were committed against the citizens of Poquoson and elsewhere, not only in Poquoson, but throughout Virginia and the United States. Like 40 million Americans have had property taken, the use of their land taken from them, because the Fifth Amendment is very clear. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. When you take my property, your property, and any property of anyone in this room 1 square inch for wetlands, as a result of the Chesapeake Bay Act, you have violated my constitutional rights and your constitutional rights, because you've taken the use of my land for the public's environmental use. That's a sad story, to tell you the truth. But it happened to us. And these are crimes against you and I. And hopefully someday we can do something about it. And hopefully someday I'd like to see every square inch of Lower Poquoson built up 6 feet and every road built up 2 feet. And if we expect to exist 200 years from now, we better get started and not wait around. Now, one reason I came down tonight is because you've been talking condominiums. Incidentally, I don't know how much time I got left. Condominiums.
30 seconds.
Oh my gosh. I knew marina. When people come to Poquoson, where do I want to take them? My guests that come in. Oh, we got a lighthouse. Privately owned lighthouse. I take them to that. We have nice schools. We have the best fire department. We have the best police department in the state of Virginia. I don't think we're second to any. We're lucky. But 30 years ago, when I first saw a condominium in the newspaper, I didn't know exactly what we were talking about. Lately, in the last 20 years, when I go to a lot of places and I stay in a condominium, I suddenly realize that this is a way that a lot of people would like to go, a condominium. You don't have to cut any grass, no trees are falling on your house, somebody worries about repairs and what have you. So, as far as I'm concerned, I don't care if we get condominiums 60 feet high in Poquoson. And we need a nice marina. I don't need to have to go to York County and take them over to the Blue Water to see some water and have a meal in a restaurant. I'd like to see Poquoson continue to be as progressive as we've been in the past. And I'd like to see a nice marina. And I'd like to see condominiums down there, because there's a clientele that comes in that have condominiums here and there and everywhere, and a nice place to park a boat. A yacht would be wonderful for Poquoson. I know it affects the infrastructure, and that's something we have to address. But I'll quit.
Okay, Ray.
Nice talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Anybody else? Carlos? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Come on, Mr. Gifford. Let's apologize, Carlos. Get you next.
Mayor Helsel and honorable members of the City Council. First time I came to ever speak to City Council was back in March of 2006. And basically, it was the week after the Planning Commission meeting that had to do with what we're going to schedule tonight, PDD, PUDW. And my concern was lack of communications with the citizens and what was going on, and critique some of the advertisement that went on that didn't contain too much useful information. But basically, I think we all agree that this got off to a shaky start back 3.5 years ago. I guess what I'm concerned about now is we're getting near the end of the process, and apparently the legislation that was talked about 3.5 years ago is now it's on the schedule this evening. I am concerned with the duration that's transpired. What you've heard for the public on this particular subject of this ordinance is 3.5 years old. What I would like to see, and obviously I don't make the rules, is some kind of joint city and public planning commission public hearing to revisit it, allow people to comment formally in a public hearing environment before you take it up for a vote. Or at least what I'd call a markup session, a working session for the City Council to go through the legislation page by page and have a chance to discuss and do any markups you feel is necessary. It's kind of been dusted off, and I don't know what's transpired in the last 3.5 years, and I don't think many people do as far as the code. I think this couldn't happen if it was the federal government or if the state government. They can't take up things that were tabled or postponed many years ago and brought up and voted. And I just question whether this is in the best interest of the citizens of Poquoson to pass ordinances as major as this is in the manner, apparently, which may be done. I'm also concerned a little bit about the characterization that this ordinance is only about density. I think it's a lot more than density, and I'll share a couple thoughts with you. First, my concern has to do with the so-called waivers, modifications, and variations. Basically, what we have now is all our zoning districts are conventional. They have rules. There are standards for height, setback, etc. Everybody knows the rules. If you want to have a variance, you go to the BZA to get a variance. Basically now, the city council, or the city manager, to the best of my knowledge, as far as the conventional zoning ordinances we have, don't get involved in that type of process. And obviously, in the new ordinance, there's kind of a new ballgame and new rules. And the city council can grant variances and, waivers and modification for building height, setbacks, density, parking, basically everything, a lot of things, including the site plan and the subdivision ordinance. Basically, what you're to be doing is voting in additional powers that you don't have now to do some things you couldn't do now. And I'm not saying that's all bad. I am a little concerned, I'll talk a little later about the idea of findings that I think the council should consider. And they're from Albemarle County Code, which, as Charlie Burgess told us, was the boilerplate that he provided the city staff to formulate the directive in front of you. Also, the new ordinance gives the city manager / zoning administrator authorization to issue what are called variations. It's just kind of a hobby. I monitor, it's called the Virginia chapter of the American Planning Association. I see their email going back and forth between planning people throughout the state, the professionals, zoning administrators, and they get on the subject of giving the zoning administrator the power to issue variations or modifications, whatever you want to call them. They frequently refer to it as the Zoning Administrator's Unemployment Act, and I'm serious. Basically, what it puts the zoning administrator in position of making decisions on variances, and I guess it's the way it's characterized. Obviously, he works for you. I'm not saying that's bad. To the extent that he has pressure on him to do things, to issue variances, it puts additional pressure on him, which normally he wouldn't have right now. Again, I think there's more issues than just number of units per acre. Another new authority that will grant to the city council says the city council shall establish minimum setback and yard requirements at the time of establishing each district. Again, it's something you don't get involved in now. It'll be something entirely new for Poquoson, but I think we ought to just think about some of these things before we just jump in. I want to touch on a couple nuts and bolts issues. And some of them I've addressed the city staff last week, and I included the mayor and I think Wayne Moore on a message. But it has to do with our PUD, and it's an article, it's PDD is article, I think, 8.2, if I remember right. But first, I have a question on what portions of our existing zoning regulations still apply in the PDD environment, PUD environment, and of these, which ones will not be subject to waivers, modifications, so-called variations. And second, has to do with findings. Why isn't the council required to make a series of findings before granting waivers and modifications? The subjects, I gave you a copy of the ordinance from Albemarle County. If you look at section code 8.2, which was our boilerplate, so to speak. I presume maybe other codes are looked at, but in Albemarle County, it lists 4 specific findings must be made before a waiver or modification is being granted. And I'm just curious why we don't follow the lead. They've got the experience of doing this. They've got a larger planning staff. They've got full-time legal staff. And it looks like we haven't had any of that kind of rigor in our ordinance. And I think Albemarle County's got a very nice breakdown. It's logical. It's clear, step by step, what applies, what doesn't apply, how our waivers and modifications carry out. We've got one long paragraph, not too long, that tries to cover all these things. And I get confused, honestly. Basically, I believe this ordinance is not ready to be voted on this evening. That's my feeling. I got a final comment on the situation you find yourselves in. I basically said you've bent over backwards on more than one occasion to satisfy the developer. The contract you signed clearly states the developer shall develop the property substantially in accordance with the site layout and subject to the developer's compliance with all applicable federal, state, and local laws, codes, and ordinances. Now the developer wants to terminate the contract since they can't apparently construct what they had in mind in the beginning because of various problems. We have site plan review comments by the city, BZA situation, and I understand that. I encourage you to look into the legalities regarding non-conforming uses and structures, specifically as the law applies to manufactured home parks, plus the impact of our current zoning ordinance with regard to this type of development. We have ordinances that are now on the books that weren't there when the manufactured homes were put on the marina. I believe our planning office may need some legal assistance in these issues. Basically, I think you need to look at all your cards and consider the tools you have available to solve the problem that you've worked so hard to solve. And that ends my presentation. I would like to comment. Had the occasion to be here during the nor'easter. I'm part of a little fledgling group called the Community Emergency Response Team, and I had a chance to watch the city manager and the fire department senior people, the chief included, and the same thing with the police department. And I was very much impressed with the way they carried out their responsibilities. And it was the first time I had a chance to watch firsthand. I want to wish you happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Gifford, and thank you for your assistance during the storm. It was valuable, and we appreciate it. Cross? Oh, I'm sorry. Next.
Yes, my name is Crosby Forrest, and I live at One Island Court. First, I'd like to commend the Public Works Department on their speedy efforts on the cleanup. I know the Saturday morning after the storm, my four-lane street was a one-lane narrow path, and they were expediently there cleaning. Again, this weekend, they were finishing the rest of the job, and my street, other than being swept, is clean. And from my discussions with other people throughout the community, I think that my street is just an example of what's taking place in the community. So I commend the staff on that work. Some of you may not have had the opportunity over the past month to personally witness the installation of the first trailer at the Poquoson Marina, so I've taken a few snapshots today to show you, and I don't think anyone will agree that what you're seeing there in front of you is an improvement to that property. I don't think anyone sitting up there would say that I'd like to have this in your backyard, and it is my backyard as it is many other folks that are sitting here, so this is definitely not an improvement. So we encourage your efforts to continue on with the mixed-use development. A couple of you have stated that you support the project. However, at various times you have issues with the height, the setbacks, et cetera. It's obvious from my view of council that at least a couple of you aren't going to support it regardless of what you do. So my perception is the other 5 of you need to get on and do what you have to do in order to make this project move. With recent delays in this project, how do you forecast any future for economic development within the city within the next 2 years? Many of us just cannot see why a commercial investor would want to invest their resources in a community such as this when it takes multiple years in order to get to the first point of digging anything in the new property. So they're not going to put up with those delays under the current ordinances. So I encourage you to do whatever you can to change the mixed-use ordinance to promote mixed-use development, particularly in our waterfront areas. Do we really want a city as our residential tax base continues to be strained? I think we do. I do. I know I definitely do. But I know there is a strain on the tax base. Do we want good schools? Yes, we do. All of these things come with a cost. Do we need to fund the city services such as we have over the last 2 weekends? Yes, we do. We know those services are strained. Where do we get our money from? Real estate tax base. And the real estate tax base in 2 years ago, I was up here talking to you how mine's gone up 150% in the period of time that I've lived there. The residential tax base of this city cannot continue to support the services that all of us, myself included, would like to see. So, we need to do something to get some commercial development in, some mixed-use development, and to do something other than a residential tax base. I know firsthand how frugal the city is. I've been there, I've sat on your side of the street, and I understand it. But I think that we need, as we have for the last 10 years, and we have the opportunity now to take that large step forward to go to some income for the city, some substantial income to the city, other than the residential real estate tax rate. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll share, I guess. There's only three. Mayor Helsel and council, good evening. I didn't really expect to be here this evening, but first of all, let me also commend you on the great cleanup. I couldn't believe you've been by my house twice already, and we're not able to keep up with you as far as cleaning it up, but we got another big pile ready. Also, thank you for providing a safe place to park our cars. During Isabel, we lost 2, and this time we put them out back here with the National Guard and didn't lose any, so thank you for that. I was asked by Ed B. Roberts to read his letter. Is it okay if I do that?
Yes, ma'am, it is. Could you tell us who you are, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
And what your address is?
I am Diane Niskern,
Okay.
and I live at 11 Ebb Tide Landing
Thank
off
you.
of Brown's Neck.
Thank you.
So I was indeed in the middle of the flood, and it was something like being out in the ocean in a ship.
They're done that.
Okay, this is from Edward B. Roberts from 238 Cedar Road in Poquoson, and he addresses this to City Council of Poquoson, Virginia. Members of City Council, I'm not able to be here tonight and have asked my friends and neighbors to present this to you on my behalf. I am firmly against the proposed planned district development, planned unit development, waterfront that you are considering. Moreover, I do not know any neighbor or friend that is in support of the proposal. I, as do most of the citizens of Poquoson, enjoy the character of Poquoson as it is currently. I choose to live here in a comfortable town of permanent residence, not in a higher density, upscale, developed waterfront area with condos and transients who are uncommitted to the community. And that is where I believe the proposed PDD, PUDW will take Poquoson. And let me say that I personally agree with those statements. As I said, I live on Ebb Tide Landing, and I assume that this, if it were approved, would again open the door for development on the end of Brown's Neck. I mean, every time it rains, the whole street's underwater. I just can't imagine having condos down there. Back to Mr. Roberts' letter. It is obvious to a reasonable-minded person the proposed PDD, PUDW is for the benefit of Mr. Brown, who wants to make a lot of money developing the former Poquoson Marine area. I hear that Mr. Brown has threatened to bring in trailers if he does not get his way. Personally, I prefer the trailers that Mr. Brown forced out or removed, and Bubba's, which many of us patronized for years before the advent of Brown and his vision for Poquoson, to the high-density, high-priced jumble of condos that the proposed PDD, PUDW would bring to Poquoson. Your duty as councilman is to represent all of the cities of Poquoson. Clearly, there are some of you that have lost sight of that fact, as is evidenced by your even considering the proposed PDD, PUDW. There's nothing any of us can do or say to force you to accept this responsibility over whatever personal gain or pressures might be causing you to abdicate that duty in favor of the selfish wishes of a wealthy developer. We can only appeal to your conscience and perhaps to your ambitions for re-election. My appeal to you is to honor your duty to the citizens of Poquoson and abandon the PDD, PUDW, which you are considering. And I would like to say that I personally concur with the last statement about abandoning the proposal. Respectfully, Edward B. Roberts and Diane Niskern. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Mark Heatfield. I live at 242 Cedar Road. I've been a Poquoson resident for 9 years. I believe you all are familiar with Mr. Ed Matheson. He has given me a letter. He's not able to be here tonight, and he has requested that I read it to the council. With your permission, I will do so.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Dear Mayor Helsel and Poquoson City Council members, my understanding is you are planning to approve a new waterfront mixed-use district to our zoning ordinance in order to assist the Browns in their effort to build a high-density, high-rise condo complex at the end of Wren's Road. If this action is taken, it will contradict the expressed opinion of a majority of Poquoson residents in 3 surveys and several public hearings. The majority of Poquoson citizens have consistently disapproved high-density, high-rise projects along the few waterfront areas available to the public. The Browns condo project is out of scale and out of place with the small-town character our city residents cherish. Adding a new waterfront mixed-use zoning district would encourage developers and some citizens to push additional unwanted waterfront condo projects at the ends of Browns Neck, Messick Road, and Wythe Creek. An honest and fair conclusion from the 3 survey results indicates the majority of Poquoson residents consider the best possible use for this property would be as a modernized, full-service marina with dry boat storage and improved restaurant facilities. The Wren's Road property has historically been a public landing and a marina providing generations of Poquoson families waterfront access for seafood harvesting, shipping, and receiving dock and recreational activities. An upgraded, full-service marina would continue that legacy and be in agreement with the survey results. From an economic viewpoint, one of Poquoson's main attractions for people living outside our city to visit and spend money is our waterfront access with short sailing distances for small portable boats engaged in recreation and saltwater fishing in the lower Chesapeake Bay. This business activity could be enhanced if the Wren's Road property provided for dry boat storage and marine servicing. The tax revenues from visiting boat owners living outside Poquoson would counterbalance the tax revenues benefiting surrounding cities from Poquoson residents spending outside our city. Boat owners living outside our city would generate a much smaller demand for city services than a population increase from condo residents. I recommend that the City Council postpone the decision to create a new waterfront mixed-use zone until the issue with the contract is resolved. If backing out of the contract can return the property to its original B2 zone, then I recommend the city and the Browns consider the modernized full-service marina alternative, which would increase our business tax base and be in agreement with the 3 survey results. However, if this council and the Browns are determined to build the high-density, high-rise condo complex, then the provisions in the contract to mitigate impact costs for road and sewer upgrades should be resolved before any action is taken to ensure the taxpayers are not subsidizing a condo project that the majority does not want. Those are Ed Matheson's words. I will say, if I may, a couple words from my own opinion. I was in and involved in some of the original planning soon after I moved into Poquoson. I participated in the survey, and I've been here for some of the council meetings that have been somewhat contentious. I do not like the precedent that is being set by agreeing to Mr. Brown's ultimatum. And I say it's an ultimatum because him putting a single mobile home out there amongst all that is exactly that. It's to make everybody run scared and say this is the way it's going to be. With correct and proper zoning, even mobile homes or manufactured homes can be a very nice neighborhood with as long as there's rules and it's done right. Anyway, Poquoson is a city of single-family homes, and I would like to see it stay that way. My neighbors would like to see it stay that way, and I urge the council to keep it that way. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Anyone? Yes, sir, Mr. Anderson.
Good evening. I'm Don Anderson, live at 3 White House Drive, and I would like to reiterate what I said at the last council meeting, in that I am definitely for improving Poquoson. It's the way we're going about it is what I would like to have some review and some second thoughts. Number one, we have this community because it was a nice small town. It's improved during the time since I've even been here, which is only 28 years now. But my point is that it sounds like we're grasping for straws here with this big project that's going to make us rich. It's going to improve the town because we're going to do this, we're going to do that. What's happened in the last 30 years when we didn't have this big project? We did just fine. You guys were doing a good job. That's one of the reasons why I moved here to Poquoson, because I thought Poquoson was doing a good job. I think that we need to sit back and think about why is it that the developer has to always have several major revisions to allow him to exceed the rules, regulations, zoning. There is absolutely no reason why he can't design and build a very fine piece of property, including a marina, including a restaurant, even some condominiums, and still follow the rules and regulations. And I'd sure like to have you folks, Mr. Mayor, I've spoken to you personally about it, but the other council members here, I'd sure like to have you folks stick to your guns. Let's have them follow the rules, and let's get going with this project. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Anyone else? Mr. Cox?
Good evening. My name is Julian Cox. I live at 166 Pasture Road. My comments also this evening are about the waterfront mixed-use development ordinance. I attended the Planning Commission public hearing March 20th in 2006 with about 120 citizens, and 23 interested and involved citizens spoke against waterfront high-density residential development the proposed city planning district ordinance would enable. It was approved by a 4-2 vote and forwarded to City Council. It was promptly approved. On April 10th, 2006, city officials moved your public hearing to the school gymnasium to accommodate the large turnout of citizens expected to attend as more citizens became aware of the ordinance. The largest number of citizens that ever attended a public hearing in Poquoson showed up, to the best of my knowledge. Citizens gave City Council at the time a much larger resounding no to the proposed ordinance that would enable construction of high-density residential development on the waterfront. In the face of concerns expressed by the multitude of citizens speaking against this change in zoning rules, Council voted unanimously to delay consideration of the ordinance. That was 3.5 years ago. In the fall of 2006, the city conducted a citizen survey for the comprehensive plan that over 40% of residences in the city responded to. The citizens were asked whether or not they supported retention of the waterfront mixed-use future land use category that would allow multifamily housing development on waterfront properties. Recently, our new city manager provided each of you with a consensus summary and that stated, and I quote, by a significant margin, respondents indicated a preference for elimination of the waterfront mixed-use category, including multifamily housing. In my view, this is an accurate interpretation of the majority no vote by the citizens of Poquoson, and consistent with all prior citizen survey results, too. The city manager also noted 80% of respondents expressed support for general public access to future waterfront development areas. The proposed ordinance, in my view, will based on my readings, will significantly reduce public access to water that citizens have enjoyed for many years. It will leave Poquoson's remaining business zone waterfront property serving the public being converted into and for the most part, privatized high-density residential developments. Now, it is my understanding you are finally considering implementation of the new waterfront mixed-use ordinance that is tailored to facilitate building of a high-density residential project for a single developer submitted later in 2006. The developer already knew that most of the citizens were strongly opposed to high-density waterfront development based on public hearings and citizen surveys that I've mentioned. It is clear to me the developer did not want to follow the city's R3 multifamily or B2 business zoning ordinances or our Chesapeake Bay ordinance to protect trees in the resource protected area that in turn help protect the quality of our local waters. Now it appears that you are going to approve a new ordinance that would give the developer a new set of incentives and rules so requirements for our existing ordinances in place that require developers to protect the public can be avoided. And that's a concern I had. And allow the developer to build taller structures with reduced setbacks and likely higher density. This new ordinance would give City Council and the City Manager new authority to issue waivers and modifications for this project to bypass existing ordinances and design standards that protect citizens. It appears to me this ordinance provides the framework for persuasion and arm twisting so you can give developers what they want. I know this project has run into difficulties in both site plan review, violation of environmental regulations protecting water quality, and in the circuit court. In view of these emergent unresolved issues, combined with the extensive delay of 3.5 years since the consistent resounding no were delivered to you by the citizens of Poquoson from 2004 through 2006, I strongly recommend that you reopen the public hearing process in fairness to the majority of the citizens in this community. Doing this will provide the opportunity also for about 1,500 new citizens in Poquoson to have their voices heard too. I don't think you should vote until the citizens are really made fully aware of the total impact on our quality of life caused by this ordinance, given your extensive 3.5-year delay and in face of the aforementioned unresolved issues with the developer. The waterfront mixed-use ordinance that you are implementing is not a solution because it does not harness the power of the majority of the citizens of Poquoson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Yes, sir.
Mayor Hauser and City Manager Wheeler. I'm Brownie Wharton. I've been a member of White House Coves for 28 years. In fact, John Benny and I lived down there together when there was a dirt road and no sewers and no city steps to go. But I'll be very brief in my comments. I think a man should have what he buys. That I believe in. Mr. Brown bought a piece of property, a marina and single-family dwelling. That he should have that. Anything else you give him, that's up to you. But make it legal, point two. I'm amazed that the city lost so much money fighting a case that was illegal, as we found out and you know about. And point three, I think you should follow what the people want. You've had 2 surveys that said they did not want high-density family housing in Poquoson. You as the city managers and city council should go out and get tax money. It shouldn't come to you free. I urge you to consider those 3 principles in whatever you do. A man should get what he buys, it should be legal, and we should do what the citizens want. not necessarily what you want. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Randy Trustrail. I live at 212 Beach Road. Good evening. I just want to add my voice against the high-density development for a lot of the reasons that Jillian stated. And in particular, it does not appear that that's what the people do not want that. The majority of the citizens don't want that. And not, if this process is taking such a long time, maybe there's a reason for that, and maybe this should not be occurring. We've already have a lot of high tides. We're going to have problems with sea level rise. If we put when we start high density development on our waterfront, we are just going to continue to pay and pay and pay for that development. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Steve?
Hey, good evening. My name is Steve Forrest. I live at 21 Wright House Drive, right around the corner from the marina. It's my first time talking to City Council. I'd like to point out that over the years, not to sound age discriminatory, but you've heard from very few young people like myself, and I'm here to tell you that everybody I talk to about this project is vastly in favor of it. It's obvious for the young crowd. The future of Poquoson is vastly in favor of it. Why do you not see them here? They're coaching soccer, they're doing homework. My wife kicked me out of the house because I've been home with her the last 4 days, so I was able to get down here tonight. But I'm here to tell you that there are a lot of those folks that are in favor. They are just, their voices are not getting heard, and it is a shame that that's the case. We keep referring to a survey that said, do you want high-density development in Poquoson? There may as well have been a question that said, do you want an ice cream parlor on every corner? Of course, you know, the answer is going to be obvious. I don't want high density in Poquoson, but when I look at the particular issue of this development, the amount of money that this man has to spend to refurbish a complete wasteland. My own house needs a new bulkhead. It's $180 a foot for my property to put a new bulkhead in. It's like $50,000 for my single-family home. How many feet of property is down there that needs refurbishing? Mr. Holloway said, Councilman Holloway said 2 years ago at best, when asked what he'd like to see happen down there, he said it'd be great if it were farmland again and, you know, trees and whatnot. But that's not realistic, people. I mean, we've got premier waterfront property in Poquoson sitting there as a wasteland. Parkland would be great. You know, a few homes with a restaurant would be great, but that's just not feasible for what that property is worth and what it's going to cost anyone to go in there and fix up. You look at Messick Road, it's I've only been here 38 years, not nearly as long as Mr. Carmine's, but Messick Road used to be a hub of activity. It's dead, you know, Messick Point, that is. Poquoson as a waterfront community, yes, it's great if you have your own waterfront. You know, we have a lot of deep water and whatnot, but as a place to go and gather and enjoy the waterfront, I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel here. You go up and down this bay, we're not the only small town that's, you know, got great character. You go to Urbana, they've got mixed-use development right on the water, and it's a great center of activity. It's not going to destroy the fabric of this city. We're not going to turn into a giant high-rise overrun by Hilton Head. I'm just amazed at the amount of opposition when you really look at the issues. Sure, it could go back to a manufactured home park. That would be great for those folks that live there, but I just don't feel like a manufactured home park belongs on our few deep water street that doesn't flood very much compared to most. Now, yeah, Browns Neck floods, but Rents Road, I drove right home and right in the midst of the flood. Drove all the way to my house. Plenty of high ground down there. And that's another thing. The developer plans to come in and make that ground higher. Is that free? No, that costs a lot of money. Costs a lot of money, and therefore you have to do high density. I don't want high density either, but if it's the nature of the beast, if it means that we're going to get a restaurant and nice waterfront and a hub of waterfront activity as a result of it, then I'm all for it. And I plead with you to please try to get the voice of the younger generation, which I know it's not your job to reach out to them, but they are slowly starting to get it out there. You talk to them, I talk to them all the time. People just are baffled. That crowd is baffled by why this is not going forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Steve. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Gina Barlow. I live at 4 White House Drive. I'm a younger crowd. And I've been listening to this tonight, and with the construction that we just did at 4 White House Drive, I had to follow rules. That's why there's all kinds of trees and shrubs and mulch beds and everything in our yard, because we put a pool in on the water. We had stipulations that we had to follow. I don't understand why Mr. Brown doesn't have to follow the same rules. I totally would love to have a nice restaurant, marina, houses down there. I just don't think that they need to be as tall as what Mr. Brown would like them to be. They are literally in my backyard, and I don't want high-rise buildings in the back of our yard. But I agree with a lot of folks here. I see the good and the bad in it. But I just wanted to, as a new resident of Poquoson, just wanted my voice to be heard.
Yes,
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Buddy?
My name's Buddy Green. I live at 12 Evans Circle. This project is literally in my backyard. I think at best, you may have a 50-50 question here. Half the city's for it, half the city's against it. Therefore, it lies in your seat. You have to make the best decision for the entire city. You're always going to have the naysayers. They're always against anything new. That piece, I've said all along, but of the 3 pieces of property, Browns Neck's not suitable for that kind of development. Messick's not because of its proximity to Langley Air Force Base. This is the only piece of property that lends itself to this development. And it can be a win-win for the city. I encourage you to please do whatever you can to see this project move forward. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy. I saw another hand, I think. Mr. Cirillo?
My name is Joe Zarello. I don't know if I could speak tonight. My daughter bought my house at 4 White House Drive, and I was part of an action against Poquoson, so I think I could speak tonight. I hope
Absolutely.
so.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't know where to begin. I hear a lot of talk tonight. One is that I heard somebody said that he would like to have company come in from outside the area. He takes them down to the waterfront. Right now, there's nothing there. But, you know, something that Browns could think about. This is a joke. He said he would like to see condominiums there. Well, maybe Browns could put a toll and have people come in and visit and pay. That's one way to get money. But, you know, hearsay. Then I heard another gentleman say that a lot of young people will like to see the project in Poquoson. I lived in Poquoson since, I think, '86. And it's unfortunate the way that society goes and property goes, that Poquoson has increased their value so high that a young person cannot buy in Poquoson. They might rent, but a good point is Poquoson has this beautiful pier down at Wren's Road. And I lived there a long time. On a good summer day, I believe you could only see maybe 3 or 4 people at that pier, young people. So I don't know where all these higher, younger generation are coming from that would like to see this development there, because there still is a gorgeous pier where people could go, fish, relax, have a Coke or whatever. It's gorgeous. But on a good, nice day, you don't hardly see anybody. Something you said earlier, and I'll bite my tongue on this. You're up here for the people of Poquoson. I hope that everybody understands their job, and when they vote properly. Because like another gentleman said, it costs Poquoson some money, and it costs some citizens some money to fight against something that we want. Maybe we were wrong, but a suggestion, maybe you should talk to the people before voting. Maybe that would be a better way to go than to vote and let it go legal. And as for taxes, if he puts a mobile trailer there, again, I lived there 15 years. Mr. Carpenter had trailers there. I never heard anybody complain about those trailers. There were no kids there, no animals, and it was nice. Again, it wasn't an eyesore for me, and I lived there. It was in my backyard. So him putting trailers, manufactured homes, I don't think should be a deterrent. If that's what he wants to do, if the city council approves it, let him put them there. But I don't want to see 60-foot condominiums there or high density. Let him put what is legal. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, sir, thank you. Anyone else? Let's go. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Don Baker at 9 Evans Circle. I'd just like to say I am an adjacent property owner, and I'm surprised that this process has gone as long as it has. I, from day one, have spoke for the project, knowing that we need to do something with this beautiful piece of property at the end of Wren's Road. And I continue to support my original ideas to go forward with it that the Browns presented to us on numerous occasions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don. Okay, anyone else? Okay. Let's move on into approval of our minutes. We have two sessions, and if we could take those individually, please.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the regular session dated November 9th, 2009.
Okay.
As amended, please.
Yes?
Yes.
It was your work session that was amended.
Oh, thank you.
These
The work session.
Work session was amended. Thank you.
Are we doing the work session first?
No,
We just did the regular session.
Okay, so let me have the motion again regarding the regular session. Who was
Make
it?
a motion, we approve the regular session November the 9th, 2009.
Okay,
Second.
okay. We're not talking about amendment to these. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Judy, please.
Councilman
guys.
Hunt.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Marie.
Aye.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Holloway.
Aye.
And Mayor Helser.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you, Judy. And the work session, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the work session for November 9th, 2009 as amended.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. We adopt our work session minutes as amended as well. Any concerns, comments regarding those minutes? Questions? If not, Judy, please.
Councilman Marie.
Aye.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilman Holloway.
Aye.
Councilman Hunt.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
And Mayor Helser.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Let's move on to item E, unfinished business. The first item is in ordinances. There are two. Amending the zoning ordinance by adding Article 8-2, Plan Development District, and Article 8-3, Plan Unit Development Waterfront. This is our second reading. Randy, any comments before we ask council for theirs?
Yes, sir, just a few things to highlight. This item comes as a follow-up to your last meeting. Council requested that this item be brought forward for consideration. The draft ordinance that you find attached is the ordinance that was before the council prior to it being, its consideration being postponed. There are 3 points I'd like to make, if you would allow me. First, the council discussed at its last meeting the issue of density. The current draft, the draft that's before you, continues to have the 16 units per acre, which is the form in which it was presented to you previously. Council discussed whether or not that was the appropriate zoning or density per acre going forward. Council also discussed 12 as it was consistent with the marina project, and also discussed the lower density of 8, which was contained in the comp plan. So I just highlight that to you, that it is in the form that you saw it at your public hearing and has not been changed. Second, should the council wish to move forward with this, one continuing issue that the developer has brought forward relates to the method by which height is measured. We discussed that at your last meeting and actually brought forward potential zoning ordinance amendments to the definition pertaining to that. As the council's direction was to move this forward for consideration, we have included, and it's on page 2 of your staff report, possible language the council may wish to consider. It is in the box, which it consists of, comprised of paragraph 1 of the staff report, page 2. It is both underlined in italics. Should you wish to do that, to address that issue the developers brought forward, this is one way to do that, as we previously discussed. An alternative way that might apply to the entire city is to go through the zoning ordinance amendment process. Lastly, just to make clear that should the council move forward with this or some variation of this overlay district, there is another process contained within the draft ordinance, specifically 8.2-5, which lays out the process by which a developer would have to go through to have his or her project considered for a specific designation of this overlay district. It's rather lengthy, so I won't go through it, but I just wanted to point out that should the council approve some variation or version, I should say, of this district, any project wishing to come under it still would have a process of application and hearing before the Planning Commission and the council. And that's all my comments.
Which I think is a very, very good point, Randy, and thank you for bringing that up.
Let me see if I understood what you said on the one thing, Randy.
Yes, sir.
I guess you were saying that the square box with the height of the building is measured to the center line of the A-frame is what we're basically saying.
That's correct, sir.
And that would need to be put into the ordinance under section 838.
Yes, sir. If you wish to address that in adopting this ordinance, yes, sir.
Okay, so we'd have to modify what's here if we wanted to do that. Okay.
Can I add a question about the same thing? So it says the height of a building is measured by the vertical distance from the, and this is where I have a question, established grade of the center of the front of the building. Does that mean halfway up? That's what you just said, halfway up the A?
Halfway up the front.
Okay.
Center line of the A, which is the same as the city and county surrounding us. Okay. Mr. Mayor.
Wait, Eugene, let me get some other comments.
Well, we can talk about center line, but I have some more things, so just not yet.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions about do I ask them now or after we make a motion?
You can ask them now, or
Okay.
you can ask them after the motion.
Sorry, I'm slightly confused, so let me go ahead. Is there a 45-foot limit elsewhere in town? Do we know?
Let me ask Debbie to come up to respond to specific
Or is there a
questions on the
lower
zoning
limit?
ordinance.
Yes, ma'am. Our single-family residential district allows single-family homes to be erected up to 45 feet in height. There is a restriction, though. For every 35, you're allowed to go up to 35 foot by right with the established setback of 15 or 20 foot, depending on the district in which the property is located. If you exceed the 35 feet, then you have to increase your setback, your side yard setback, by an additional foot for every foot that you exceed 35, with a maximum of 45 feet.
So if I wanted to go 45 feet, I'd have to increase
Your side yard setback.
by
10 feet.
10 feet.
I mean, excuse me, yes, 10 feet.
Okay, that answers that. I also had a question. If I'm gonna ask my questions now about this ordinance, I noticed, or I didn't notice that there were any impact fees in here. Did I read it correctly?
I think we should let Wayne answer impact fees because it's really a legal question.
I don't think you can have them.
Exactly.
We don't have.
State law does not allow us to impose impact fees on developers.
Okay. All right, moving on to page, I apologize for...
But follow up on Tracy's question for a second. Aren't there fees not called impact fees, but other fees that are charged per unit throughout the state, especially in the Northern Virginia area? I think they go by a different name.
I don't know what they do in Northern Virginia.
All right.
Being in Northern California, as far as I'm concerned.
Well,
But
it's
as
all
far as
Virginia.
we are concerned here, you can have proffers, you can have fees and expenses that are agreed to as part of a negotiated proffer between the developer and the city. But you cannot say you can't build unless you pay us $10,000 or unless you give us a new school or an addition on a school. They are impact fees, and they're not permitted.
In Poquoson.
Not just anywhere, unless there is a special statutory amendment that allows certain jurisdictions to have those. That does not apply to Poquoson, or doesn't apply to any of the cities on the peninsula as far as I know of.
Okay.
But there are situations where there have been negotiated fees. James City County negotiated fees in Newtown, and they are proffers, and they're recorded, and they become claims against the property. Isle of Wight County and the Eagle Harbor Development negotiated certain fees and things that went to the county as part of that master plan that was rezoned. But they were proffers.
So is a proffer is not something that we
You can't
would
compel
put
a
in
proffer.
here? You can't, I didn't hear you.
You cannot compel a proffer.
Okay.
A proffer, just that it's an offer.
Got it.
You offering to do certain things in order to satisfy the city's concerns about how a particular development would impact the city. But it's done as a voluntary contractual arrangement
makes
between the city and whoever the
Thank you.
developer is.
Okay, and then moving on, if I'm still asking my questions. On page 5, the density issue, you're dropping it, the overall gross density down from 20 to 16. But didn't, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I was not here during any of this. I think Randy, Tom, and I are all new to the council since the original public hearings, which I am concerned about. But you're wanting to drop it to 12? But didn't the BZA recommend 8? At their,
The Planning Commission.
I'm sorry, the Planning Commission. Didn't they recommend 8? Okay, so back when all of this was heard, that was the recommendation?
I can't recall all the
Remember
way back
it
there,
as 12?
but last meeting, we talked about 12 met the plan that you had submitted.
I'm getting different answers, so
that
I would
correct?
like to know that answer, if, at some point.
Why don't we just talk about density for a second? Is that okay with other members of council, or?
I'm fine.
The last session, we did talk about the different densities, and as I read the ordinance right now, the density, you take the density number, whether it be 8 or 12, and you multiply it by the total density of all the land, because it's not going to be residential R3 land and business land. It's all the land. They have about 14 acres there, I believe. So whatever the number is, you multiply the number in this ordinance, because it's on the net land, times the total number of units. And what the developer came in with was 136 units. He has 14 acres, so to keep the number of units the same, it would need to be about 10, or a little bit less than 10 to keep the number the same. In our most recent comprehensive plan that we approved a month ago, or maybe 2 months ago, we did approve waterfront mixed use as being 8 units per acre. And if we were to make this 8 units per acre, this PUD W, which is Planned Unit Development Waterfront, by the way, PUD W, 8 units per acre, that would result in 112 units on the 14 acres. So I think 12 is too many. I do think the density is one of the biggest issues we have, and I'm fine with 8, of course, because that's what I supported in the comprehensive plan. I think we should have our ordinances be consistent with our comprehensive plan.
And to give that some perspective, I had asked Randy to get me the numbers on the existing town villas and the condominiums we already have in town. And for Poquoson Place townhouses, which I'm most familiar with, they've got 98 units on a 14.5 acre property. And by my math, that comes out to 6.7, almost 7 units per acre. So that would be kind of what we'd be looking at if we keep it under 8.
Well, keep it to, I forgot to mention one other thing, and that is I was looking through the York County PUD-W, and the number they have in that ordinance is 10, I believe. I don't know, Debbie, did you look at it? It's 10 for their PUD-W is what they have.
Okay. All right, there are other questions?
I have one more question about, I think only one. The parking spaces, just the unit numbers, I don't have a good feel for whether that's a good number or not. Do we know that this compares to other, where did these numbers come from? And I don't know who would, Debbie, that any unit of 500 square feet or less, 1.25, and then 1.5 for a one bedroom. Does this compare to neighboring areas?
It's hard for me to exactly remember because it's been about 3 years ago since we drafted this ordinance.
Yeah.
But I would assume at the time that we drafted the ordinance, we did compare it with other localities. So I would assume that it's fairly consistent with the other localities.
Okay, because I think part of the problem with the public, not those who are upset with what may or may not happen down at the end of Wren's Road, is they want access. So I think that making sure that if there are restaurants down there, having enough access to include parking spaces, not parking spaces for the people who live there, but parking spaces for the people who are coming in to use the water, which would remain public. I think that's important.
How does this compare to the existing ordinances for residential and business, these numbers?
The numbers, the parking numbers, they're very similar.
But I don't know that this is, what we're looking at is similar to existing, what already exists.
We as a council, number one, unless I read it completely wrong, we're not locked into anything. That's number one. Number two, we don't have a development plan. I guess one could argue that the conceptual plan 3.5 years ago was a plan. I don't think we currently have a development plan. So we don't really know what's going on this property. And whatever it is, we're going to get a shot at it. Is that a fair statement?
Correct. And shared parking is something that it's an idea that we've also introduced in the zoning ordinances for the Big Woods area. When you have businesses that are sharing combined walls and or are lying adjacent to each other, shared parking is a new concept in order to cut back on the amount of impervious coverage that's required by our current old standards, actually, along the Wolf Creek Road corridor.
And I guess as we're going forward, then, if we're going to go forward with any of this, I would ask that we find out, I'm guessing City Center and places like that have some sort of shared parking like that, or Port Work, and I'm wondering if we could find out how that's working for them.
I don't think there's any issue with that. I just think that first of all, we have to have a plan. We haven't seen a plan. I haven't seen a plan. No one in this audience has spoken tonight, whether for or against, has seen a plan. There are just some things that bother me about this, and let me just say what I've got to say now. The first thing I want to do is take some exception to the letter that Mr. Roberts, that was read on Mr. Roberts' behalf. To send a letter to this council and to indicate, at least for me, that there's some kind of selfish wish on my behalf regarding this development, I think that is just a real slap in the face. This letter all but accuses this council of making deals, yielding to pressure, not taking our responsibilities seriously. I've got some issues with that letter, and if Mr. Roberts is watching, I'd like for him to know that. This council has dealt with this issue for 3.5, 4 years. We saw the conceptual plan many years ago, and we as a council said at that time this was a good plan. This was exactly what we wanted to see at the end of Wren's Road. There were a mixture of condominium units. There was a seafood restaurant, which probably will not come now. There was a new boat ramp included, which will probably not be there in the future. Yes, your pier will be there, your dock will be there, and the city will have to maintain that. It would have been maintained and open to the public, which I thought was very generous of those folks that we had tried to negotiate transfer of city property. But that's not. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to have a lesser community there. I do have some feelings with regard to the 1,500 families in this community that are not in the median income area. I think I have a responsibility to them. When this letter talks about representing all of the people, I think we have to consider those 1,500 folks. They're not making $85,000 and $90,000 a year. 360 families below the poverty level. We have an opportunity to cause a revenue stream to happen in this city, I believe, through a development plan approved by this city council, irregardless of what you do with these ordinances tonight. If they're approved tonight, it does not lock up the development. We have to have a plan. We have to have a say in it. We'll listen to the public. We'll hear everything that they've got to say. I think we've been super, super respectful of every person that's been in that podium, everyone. But I have an obligation to everybody in this city, and that includes the 1,500 folks that are not well off in today's standards. They're fighting, they're struggling, and we have an opportunity to provide something that may offset some of that. We had the same sort of environment and the same sort of scenarios when we entered into conversation with Gene Walters years ago about Farm Fresh. We had drainage issues, we had building heights, we had the same type of scenario, and Farm Fresh, pays us about $200,000 a year, and right now I don't know what we do without it. There was argument about Food Line. They're another $200,000 a year contributor to the city of Poquoson that I think we need to recognize. There, we had folks at this podium that didn't want McDonald's here. They didn't want the colors that McDonald's had. I am very, very thankful that a council prior to me, and those of you that have served on this council with me, saw a little bit ahead and realized that those projects were good for this city. And I don't think we deteriorated the small town atmosphere that we hear so much one iota. I don't think we've done that. In any progress that we've made in this city, I don't think we've touched or harmed the small town environment, because that environment is made up of citizens. It doesn't have anything to do with buildings, in my view. It doesn't have anything to do with buildings. We've got a young man that just lost his life over the weekend. All 12,000 folks in this community, if I'm not badly fooled, have contacted that family. That's what this community is. It's not about buildings and high-rises. It's about making progress and providing for the citizens the very best environment that we can provide. And I think we've done that. And if that sounds like I'm trying to defend this council or defend Gordon, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. Because I think it's really unfair. I think it's really unfair to have a project that's sitting right in front of our eyes, and we're about to ruin it. We're about to sell it down the river. We're about to keep an environmental nightmare. It's not our property. There's absolutely nothing we can do about that. We had a piece of asphalt road that the only thing we do with that piece of asphalt road that I know about, Randy, is maintain it. That would have led to what I think this community really needs to have. And let me say this. We have talked at least over the last 5 years, this council, in fact, Tracy, you mentioned that you were new, and that's true, and Tom is to some degree, but you become veterans very, very quickly. We've talked about Messick's Point many, many times. Not one time have I heard that we wanted to do any development of Messick's Point other than a park for this city. That is the only thing that we've ever discussed. We had a developer 5 years ago that wanted to put high-rises at Messick's Point. And we met with those folks, and what we told them was, that's not going to happen. Not only did we tell them that, but the United States Air Force told them that. And so, we want to develop Messick's Point in a way that the community wants it developed, and what they've told us through surveys, phone calls, visits, and at this podium, that they wanted to see access to a park there, and that's all we've talked about. Browns Neck has never, that I've sat on this council, been considered for any type of high-rises of any kind. I wish this lady had stayed. It's an altogether different piece of property, and we recognize, and this council has talked about the road conditions there. The only way you would develop that is to raise the road, which puts 300 or 400 families in a hole, and there's no council that's going to do that. It's not going to happen. So I take exception to those who think that the adoption of this ordinance, number one, puts in place all of the condominiums, all of the density, all of the things that we've heard here tonight. It doesn't do that. It doesn't do that. We haven't seen a development plan. I personally would like to see one. I would encourage folks like Mr. Cox to look at that plan. Mr. Gifford, to look at that plan. The information that we get from you folks is not just discarded and thrown in the trash can. I read it. I look at it. I know that the rest of council does. Do I understand all of it? No, I don't. But we have a staff that's second to none who explains those things to me in a very clear manner. But I just think that moving forward tonight is exactly what we do. We're moving forward. We've spent the better part of the last 5 years discussing this. I don't see the adoption of these ordinances as wrecking this city. I don't see it putting in place anything at the marina. What I see is a move forward, something for council to work with, and I have to see a development plan. And when I see a development plan, we discuss those issues that have been brought forward here tonight. I think that we should do that. But I'm not going to sell the project down the river just because these two ordinances and because I feel like they're not totally have been totally defined to the community at large. So I'm going to support both of them. But I look forward to looking at the development plan when and if it ever comes. We're not guaranteed we'll even have this project. And I think what we are guaranteed that the things that the people wanted most in the survey, we're not going to get. We're not going to get. And I think that's really unfortunate because this city in the next couple of years, 3 years, Randy, I think you would attest to this, we're financially strapped. We're probably a lot better off than many cities, and I give our staff credit for that because they seen to it that we were that we were fluid with regard to our money. But we don't have any extra dollars to spend anywhere. I thought we had a great opportunity to have those, and as I looked at the surveys, there was one item on there that I think I remember correctly, was restaurants. People wanted a nice restaurant. But I can tell you, I think it's gone. I think it's gone. And if anybody ever needed a new boat ramp at Wren's Road, we certainly needed that. How many axles do we pay for every year because people can't properly use that ramp? And it's a travesty. It's a tragic thing in this city that we can't provide better than that. We just don't have the money to do it. It was offered to us, and I think that's gone by the wayside as well. So if we ever get it, we'll pay for it. And I don't know when that'll ever happen. I don't think in my tenure on this council that we're going to be financially able to do either one of those things. So. I have no reservations about supporting both of these ordinances for those reasons that I've mentioned. I don't feel like they lock me into anything. They don't lock this council into anything. And I'm ready to move forward, but let's hear from everybody so that we're clear.
Let's see if we can shape the debate a little bit by putting a motion on the floor. Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt an ordinance amending the zoning ordinance by adding Article 8.3, Planned Unit Development Waterfront, with the following modifications on page 5. Okay. I'd like to change the number from 16 to 12. Okay. And I would like to insert in the height regulations the words from the front that basically say the height of the building is measured from the vertical distance. And this would apply, hopefully, Randy, we would follow that up with changing all ordinances to say those same words. But for tonight, those are the two modifications that I see that we needed to make to reduce the density so that, we're down around 136. And I think that the the Chesbay Act and the normal setback ordinance is going to make that number improbable. Okay? But that gives us the leeway. So that's my motion on the first ordinance, and I guess, so I'll combine it. I'll make a motion that we adopt the second ordinance as written.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Well, does everybody understand the amendments? Everybody clear on the amendments?
What was the third one? The first one was, first one was building height measurement to mid-gable, makes sense. 12 units per acre, and the third one was?
There wasn't a third one. The third one was that if we adopt the second ordinance as written.
As is written.
But what were the three changes you had to the first ordinance?
There's two.
There's only two.
Just two, okay.
Just two.
That's why I didn't have a third.
I also would like to see that height measurement apply citywide, not just to the waterfront development.
What Tom had heard.
That's what I was hearing, okay, citywide.
That again is an item that we've talked about at this council for many months. And long before we had a
It's based on
conceptual view.
Fire protection
Yeah.
before we had the ladder truck.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I heard what you said, and I agree with portions of it. I think that it's very important that we get these two ordinances correct, because they do set up the framework for the follow-on proposals that are going to be coming in. And I have bounced some of this against York County, and I do have some areas that I have concerns about. But first, I wanted to say for the people out there, everyone here knows that I've always voted consistently against the Poquoson Marina based on the high density aspect. And about 2 years ago, we went and we signed into a development contract for this situation. And when we signed into that development contract, that essentially committed the good faith of the city to go ahead and try and execute something along those lines. And although I did not agree with that at the time, and I still do not agree with it, regardless, I have an overriding responsibility to defend the city and make sure that what we do is in accordance with the agreements and the contracts that we have signed. And I still think that, as I said, we're putting a large number of people at risk in a floodplain. And I have some photographs here other people can look at. This shows the recent nor'easter, and we can Wayne, if you toss that out it shows in the recent nor'easter how the water came up onto the Poquoson Marina site. It was around the trailers. Wren's Road was not passable. At least I wouldn't drive through several feet of seawater with any of my vehicles. And so I think that really shows that what we're doing here is not the best use for the land, because it is a floodplain. And I have to correct one thing that was said here, and I have to make sure everybody knows this, and that is this council in the comprehensive plan did recently take out Brown's Neck and did not go along with the Planning Commission on adding Shady Oaks. And we took out Brown's Neck from waterfront mixed use because we were worried about flooding and we were worried about the situation. We have somewhat a similar situation here, but again, sorry, we already agreed and we have a contract in place that that I need to agree with the intent of, because that's the way it is. Now, when you look at the pictures, there's one thing that's important to realize, and that is that when we got this letter from the Chesapeake Bay people here, it basically says you can't fill on that property. It's not a It's not a permitted right to go fill on the property. And that's going to be some discussion, I'm sure, down the road, because that's a different view than the city staff has taken in the past. And so that's something we're going to have to work for. So there's one other thing I want, well, let me just pass on that. There are there's four major areas that I'd like to talk about that give me great concern with the way the PUD, the planned district and the planned unit development waterfront are laid out. And I said last meeting, I support putting ordinances out here because we've got something. We have in our comprehensive plan a waterfront mixed-use district, and we don't have ordinances to implement it. And that just shouldn't be. We should have consistent laws for what is in our comprehensive plan. So I do support a framework, and I will work and continue to support a framework to go forward with the plan, with the waterfront mixed use. The four areas that I'm concerned with most, first is density. We've talked about that. If we put in 12, that's going to get it up to 144 plus 28 is a lot. It's going to get it well over the 136. It's going to get it up to about 172 units. And we said 136. So what I would ask is that we drop it down to 8, because that is consistent with the comprehensive plan that we just received. And I think it's consistent with our development contract, because in the development contract, we as we're seeing here, approved a little bit less than 9. And now the developer is not doing several things, so I think that's consistent if we go with 8. The second thing is, when I look at the York County Code, and I'll give this to the city manager if it's necessary. There aren't very many words that give us leverage when we do get the next development contract in. It just basically says council can approve it. But what I really like the words that are in the York County Code, because they say in the York County Code for planned use development waterfront that the council may impose such other conditions as it deems necessary on any development proposed under the terms of this section in recognition of any unique circumstances surrounding the particular proposal or the area in which it is proposed, and in order to ensure the protection of health, safety, and general welfare of the public and preservation of property values. That will give us some more leverage. So that is the second thing. I like what's in the York County in that area. The third area was touched upon by one of the people who spoke, and that is that the way this framework is set up right now, the zoning administrator can approve changes to height and the minimum lot size. I think it was Corey who said, it's been referred to on various places as a zoning administrator's unemployment act. Because what we're doing is we're going to put our city manager in a political crossfire, and I don't think we should do that. I like the words that are better in the York County PUD waterfront that does not give those things and says limited deviations from the approved overall development master plan may be authorized, but reduces it less. It gives much less leeway for the zoning administrator. And I'd like to note that in the zoning document right now that we have, there is a process by which exceptions can be approved. It goes to the planning commission and it goes to council. If after we approve something, they want to change it, there's a mechanism set up for that. I just want to keep our city manager out of that crossfire. And the fourth and final major item that I got just looking through this is that we talk about open space in this planned unit development waterfront, and we say we had to have 20% open space. The problem is what counts towards open space can be things like BMPs and marsh, Whereas when you go look at York County, they say it needs to be open space maintained for the use of those who live or work within the development and shall be arranged in one or more centrally located green space areas and a central town square or similar area to provide both visual and activity focal points for the development. And I think that would much more meet our intent of open space, to have something that people can use rather than a BMP, because you can't swim in a BMP, you can't fish in it, you can't do much of anything in a BMP. So that's what I'd like to say, and where I would like to go on this is I would like to go back and open this back up and get some comments and work and craft it and compare it to the York County ordinances. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, one question, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
It's really for Debbie. What is the acreage of the one area that we're talking about overlaying this district on? Do you remember?
The minimum is 12.
The minimum is 12. Okay. So that's what the calculation should be based on versus the 14? I'm talking about acreage now.
Are you talking about
can I re-ask your
density?
question?
You can re-ask the question.
Debbie, if the property that's currently subject to the marina project is put forward in a development plan, how big is that parcel?
14 acres.
Okay. Just want to make sure we were all on the same number. Okay.
And address this to you, Randy, or to Wayne, we still do have a contract, is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
And that contract was for how many units?
136, wasn't it?
138, I thought.
138.
And Mr. Mayor, I'd like to modify my motion.
Sure.
I'll agree with Tom, since we're in the spirit of some negotiation here. Like I said, that was just to shape the debate. I'd like to modify my motion based on the fact that it's 14 acres, that it would be 10 units per acre. And again, with the setbacks and the C-plat ordinance, again, they're still probably not going to be able to achieve the original number that the contract is written for.
Well, it's only 2 more than the conceptual plan we looked at 4 years ago.
So you see, I'd like to modify the motion if Frank would back that as a
10 per acre as opposed to a fixed number.
No, 10 units per acre in lieu of the 12 on page 5.
There's a second consent to that amendment.
I was getting ready to find out,
Yeah,
Wayne. I
it
think
was
Frank
Frank's
was the second.
I had Freeman making the
Okay.
second.
Oh,
Carrie, you all right with that change?
Franker, I'm sorry.
Wouldn't you?
I thought it was Frank. I thought it was Frank. Either one of you can say, just say it. Go ahead, Frank.
I'll second the amended motion made by Councilman Hunt.
all right.
All right, and until, again, Randy, until we get this, if we get a development plan, we still have a contract in place.
Yep.
Right? The contract doesn't disappear, doesn't go away. We still have that to deal with.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, since I made the motion, I guess I'd like to speak a little bit. Just to, not mean to slow things down. I think we've all heard enough about the marina tonight. But we've heard the argument over several years. And I'll be quite honest with you. To me, the money's nice, but this isn't about a money development. This isn't about money for the city. And I can tell you the members of council are, some of the letters I took exception to. It's your freedom to come to that podium and speak to council on anything that's on your mind. But sometimes the things that come out of people's mouths should be considered, and sometimes you ought to think about what it is that you're saying, what you're accusing your council, who basically are a volunteer body, if you look at our paychecks. Okay, so I'll tell you that I haven't been in Poquoson as long as Mr. Carmine's either, but I've been here all my life. The biggest community that was discussed tonight were from the representatives of White House Cove. Mr. Anderson came the other day and he was talking about planting trees in White House Cove and how he's having problems planting a particular type of tree. White House Cove is a marsh field. Okay? It is a marsh field. And it was filled at a time with a council that felt like the city needed to grow. So it's not unusual to me that a hardwood tree would not grow there. As well, Cedar Road is also an area filled. Okay, it was a marsh, and it was in fact filled. Those were the laws of the day. It allowed those types of things, and you know, quite honestly, for the good of this city, because I tell everybody that I see in this city that our diversity has only improved the city of Poquoson. There's the original folks that were here. I guess you could say I was one of those. But with pretty much open arms, you know, I reach out and say, you know what, the people that have moved in here have made us better. And they have. We've brought scholars, engineers, we've brought people that care about their community, as evidenced by the storm, and I think that Mayor Hessel expressed that extremely well. And no matter what side of the issue you fall on, I can tell you I've seen Poquoson pull together. And I think this comment about people pulling together is really what makes Poquoson Poquoson. Okay? We've been through an Isabel, and now 6 years later we find ourselves very much in the same predicament, only we did better because we made some basic fundamental changes. We took 6 high tides. That doesn't mean that there's not individual suffering in this city tonight, and nor does it mean that somebody probably didn't lose their life from that storm through storm cleanup. Okay? And the community will be behind that family, I know. But this is really about kind of the future, just like the future of those 2 areas. You know, we have very little in this community. We have a dilapidated marina, and we have Messick Point and Browns Neck. The wisdom of this, and we started setting this up at the comprehensive plan, we did remove Browns Neck Road. Browns Neck Road does not meet any of the things that would be required. It floods at a normal storm tide, 2 feet. Okay? I mean, and we all know that, and you have to cross a large section of marsh, and I'm not going to isolate people down on the end of Browns Neck Road. Okay? Messick Point is too far down the road, and like I said, there's the problems with the Air Force. Not that the Air Force is a problem. Unlike Virginia Beach, we kind of welcome them. But Wren's Road, to be quite honest with you, was developed without a lot of adherence to any laws when the gentleman that developed it put it in. And many of us have worked there. Many of us have fueled boats when we used to fuel boats. We've seen the trailer park that was down there. It was a very nice community of people. That's not to say that's the community that the mobile homes are not. You know, that was Dave's idea to say, not going to have any kids here. Well, quite frankly, that was a personal decision, not a city decision. This is about, when I say it's not about money, I would like everybody to put one thing into perspective. Right now, we have another failing school, okay? And we have a declining school population, probably because some of the citizens that came up here tonight recognize that you can't afford to live in Poquoson until you're almost my age. You know, that's a shame. But are these condos going to fill those schools? Absolutely not. This is absolutely another market where people are not going to be there. You know, a lot of people came up and said the apartments were going to flood the schools, and we do have existing apartments. Sorry to say that, but we do, and we're required to. But I guess the biggest thing that I'm leaving here with tonight is, are we going to make a difference, or are we not going to make a difference on that site that is an eyesore, that has creosote poles that are polluting the bay today? Are we going to continue to do that? Wait till that restaurant falls into the river because we can't get out of our own way. And for those of you that said, well, you know, Virginia has all the expertise. They have all the knowledge. We should consult with the state of Virginia. They have the experts. I would only bring up to you our current transportation issue. Okay? How long are we going to wait? How long are we going to say, we can't? But there was very little that came out of public comment tonight that said, hey, what about this? This would be different. Okay? It was just a lot of, this is what's wrong with somebody else's property. Okay? And I guess the final thing is that I've heard a lot of attacks turn nasty against council. And that's okay. We've got big shoulders, we can handle this. But basically, a lot of people have taken it personally against the Brown family. And I'll be quite honest with you, a finer family, Poquoson has not. Okay? They are hardworking people just as we are. And I hate it to watch people turn against people. It makes me sick to my stomach to watch people turn it personal and turn against each other. Should not be doing that. We are Poquoson. That's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
All right, G. Any other comments? Anybody else have anything to say? Okay, Judy, let's do the first ordinance.
Okay. I just want to clarify
Both at once. Fine.
Yes. I wanted to clarify, Gene, when you made your motion, you said it was the first ordinance. Actually, it was the second ordinance.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're correct.
And I'm going to ask for a vote on the amendment first. And the amendment to the main motion was that we reduce the number of units from 12 down to 10. So if I could have a vote on that amendment. Councilman Holloway?
Aye.
Councilman Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Marie?
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford?
Aye.
Councilman Krieger?
Aye.
Councilman Hunt?
Aye.
And Mayor Helson.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion of the amendment was 7-0. And now we'll vote on the motion to adopt the planned unit development waterfront ordinance as amended, reducing the units down to 10 and adding the language regarding the height in section 8.3-8A. We're going to add that language there and adopt the ordinance adopting the planned development district. We're adopting both ordinances with the second one.
Yes, ma'am.
And Councilman Holloway?
Aye.
Councilman Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Marie?
Nay.
Councilwoman Crawford?
I want to explain can I explain my vote now? I have to do that at the end, or can I talk now? I'd like to explain my vote. I do like to think that I'm a pretty quick learner, but I don't think that I would be doing this seat justice to vote on this after only 30 minutes of public discussion and feedback. I am new to this council, and I really am not an anti-development or redevelopment person. I'd like nothing more than to see public restaurants and boat ramps, but I do need to look at the York County ordinances and take the opportunity to listen, to learn more from experts on the subject before I vote. I don't understand why council tabled this 3.5 years ago and Nick didn't hurry to get back to it. The gentleman that held the seat tabled it then, and I'm just confused. So I'm going to vote no I think we need time to discuss this.
Okay.
Councilman Krieger?
Aye.
Councilman Hunt?
Aye.
And Mayor Helson. Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 5-2.
Okay, thank you, Judy. All right, let's move on to the second item, which is a resolution canceling the second meeting of the month of December.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to cancel the second meeting of the month of December 2009.
All righty? Second. Okay. Judy, please.
Councilman Hunt?
Aye.
Councilman Krieger?
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford?
Aye.
Councilman Marie?
Aye.
Councilman Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Holloway?
Aye.
And Mayor Helson.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to new business. First item is a resolution approving the restatement of the amended and restated cooperative services agreement with Virginia Peninsula Regional Jail Authority. Randy?
Mr. Mayor, this is a housekeeping issue. Neither the city attorney or I have any issues or concern about it, and we recommend it for your approval.
Okay, someone prepared with a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution approving the restatement of the amended and restated cooperative service agreement with
Okay.
Virginia Peninsula Regional Jail Authority with great comment as to their service.
Okay. Second. Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. We adopt that resolution. Any comments, concerns, any questions? If not, Judy, please.
Councilman Marie.
Aye.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilman Holloway.
Aye.
Councilman Hunt.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
And Mayor Helsel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to item 2, is a resolution making an appointment to the Library Advisory Board. Anyone prepared with a name to insert?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to insert the name of Nancy Catlett.
You gonna make a motion to,
Okay, we have a motion.
make a motion? Is that the motion?
Okay. Yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion made and second that we adopt the resolution to the appointment to the Library Advisory Board with Nancy Catlett's name inserted, and that's a wise choice. Wise choice. Any concerns, any comments? If not, Judy, please.
Councilman Holloway.
Aye.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Marie.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilman Hunt.
Aye.
Mayor Helsel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thank you, ma'am. And item 3 is a ratification of the declaration of emergency. Randy?
Mr. Mayor, this is required within a reasonable period following the declaration of local emergency by user. I'd ask the council to ratify this. It makes us eligible for potential reimbursement in the future, should it be available to us.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt the resolution ratifying the proclamation issued by the mayor declaring a state of emergency in the city of Poquoson on November 12th.
All righty.
Second.
All right, we have a motion second. We adopt that resolution. Any concerns or comments? Any questions? If not, Judy, please.
Councilman Hunt.
Aye.
Councilman Krieger.
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford.
Aye.
Councilman Marie.
Aye.
Councilman Freeman.
Aye.
Councilman Holloway.
Aye.
And Mayor Helsel.
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7-0.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to comments of the city manager. Randy?
I apologize in advance, members of council. I have more comments than normal tonight, but I'll try to be brief. First is to make the council aware, approximately 5 o'clock this evening, I did get a call from school board member Brennan indicating a need because of an extended out of the country job commitment to resign his position with the school board. So I wanted to make you aware of that. And as I wasn't here when we did this the last time, I'm proposing we duplicate whatever process we had that got us to, I think, a good result. And without direction to the contrary, we'll duplicate that and move forward as quickly as we can.
Where did he hold, where was he from? Eastern, Western,
Central.
Central?
District. Second, I want to apologize to those members of council who had unexpected and significant delays in receiving their council package. With the best of intentions, we found that our SOP for delivery of those do not work in every case. We have 2 incidences in my first 6 months here, and we will put in place an SOP that will correct that. I apologize to you. In this case, to you 2 gentlemen. A reminder to the council and to the community that our upcoming holiday parade, which is themed the movies of Christmas, will be Friday, December the 4th at 7 p.m. Encourage everybody to either be part of it or come watch it and be part of it that way. I would be sadly remiss if I didn't take a moment to say how much I appreciated the efforts of the city staff during the most recent storm. It was a 4-day all-hands exercise, men and women of public safety, and also public works and utilities and a small army of other folks, augmented by even another army of citizen volunteers and the citizens themselves, all really pulled together and turned what could have really been an unmanageable amount of flooding and this crisis into something that was at least manageable, and I'm very appreciative of that. I would like to note for you that, and several folks talked about it earlier tonight, we have city crews working 10-hour days to clear refuse and debris. I think we're making a good dent in it. We could hire some additional contract support to help us, but given our fiscal situation and the success our crews are making, I would suggest that we not do that at this point. But for your information, if we got 3 private trucks in here for one day, our cost would be about $5,400. And so that's the kind of money we're looking at. I would express my appreciation to the City of Hampton. Should we find we need some help, they have offered to work with us and actually use some of their trucks at a fee which is slightly more than a third of that previous. So we're ready if we need it, but at this point, I think we're making good progress.
Was that 54 total for the 3 trucks?
Yes, sir.
Not per truck?
That's correct. It's for 3 trucks.
Okay. And while we're talking about the cleanup, what is the date that the cleanup is through? I've been asked that several times.
We'd estimated last week that it would be 30 days from about last Tuesday. I think we're going to, unless we have another storm on top of it, I think we'll beat that. We had told people originally that I think it's December the 4th, we would have the sort of the suspension of the usual practices for debris and pickup. We'll extend that a little bit to get closer to the end of that 30-day period as we need it, but we really wanted to try to encourage folks, if they could, to get it out early so we could pick it up in mass.
One comment on that, I would caution you because the ground has been so spongy that a lot of people are unable to really get it out to the street yet. So you may want to take that into consideration. I've heard that comment several places that they can't get trucks, trailers, and all that stuff to get the debris into their thing without trashing their yard more and then bringing it out to the street. So I would just ask you to take that into consideration.
I appreciate that, and I will. I would like to say 3 other things if I could. Again, begging your indulgence. There are a whole bunch of people that really shined during the most recent event, and I can't do justice to all of them, though we're going to bring them to you in the very near future. But 2 that I would especially like to single out. One is our Deputy Fire Chief, Mike Bryant, who acted as our Emergency Services Coordinator. In his first major test in that role, he was outstanding. And also Lisa Holloway and her entire CERT team, they were an extension of this city's emergency response capabilities that really made the difference for a lot of people. They were handling non-emergency calls, people needing transport in and out of the flood zone for medication, people needing housing, people needing blankets, people coming here wanting to spend the evening with us because they wanted to get out of the storm. The CERT folks were that extra set of hands and a warm heart that really made it work. So I wanted to commend them. Also, one question I get asked routinely from folks is how much is the operations of recovery costing us? And so I'm talking about costs on top of what our normal costs would be. At present, we're estimating those somewhere in the neighborhood of $170,000. That's, in case you're keeping track at home, that's about equivalent of 1 cent on our tax rate. And should we find we need to have private contractors or anybody augment the work we're doing, obviously the costs go up from there. And finally, I'll welcome direction now or at any time in the future regarding the future scheduling of the IDA work session that you all talked about earlier. I would just note to you that the draft schedule that you have, IDA in this context is the Industrial Development Authority, something different. So at any time the council provides direction on that, we will schedule it.
I think I've understood, Council, you'd rather do that sooner than later. So the sooner that we can get that into a work session, Randy. So we
Do
can
you
discuss it
have a
further.
preference on what we bump?
Is there something we can move out, or is there something that we can?
Your next work session is scheduled for December the 14th, and we have tentatively included the Planning Commission and the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
I think we move them back because that's probably a good thing to do right after the first of the year,
Yeah.
is to meet with
Why
those
don't
2
we just
boards instead of right
Just
before the
substitute it
holiday.
out. That'd be
Okay.
fine. Is that okay with everybody? All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it. Sorry
That's
for the
it.
long
Okay.
list.
Tracy, comments?
I apologize in advance, too. I'm talking a lot tonight. And thank you, Randy, for all that you've done, too. I'll start with thanking all of the community volunteers from, the sidewalk committee that's getting ready to have another meeting, all of the board members, all the community volunteers, with special praise going to the police and fire department, as well as the CERT team. This really is a fabulous place to live. I wanted also to point out that the city has a Twitter page, so for those of you who were looking for information during the storm, if you would, or can tweet. Join the City of Poquoson Twitter page. There aren't that many followers right now, but that will be eventually a good way to get a lot of good information. I wanted to thank all the citizens who came out tonight to speak. I do hear you, and I wish I could have more time to talk with you. I wanted to point out, the Kiwanis are working on sending stockings to soldiers, so if anybody's interested in participating in that, please see me. I can pass along information. I don't want to take Frank's thunder. I want him to mention the empty stocking fund, so make sure you do that, please, Frank, because that's an important community participation. Kiwanis tree lighting ceremony is on the 11th. Please make sure you put that on your calendar and come out. I wanted to point out that, the schools have done such a good job today dealing with yesterday's terrible tragedy. I wanted to commend the counselors, the administration, teachers for their sensitivity and guidance that has been provided to all of our students in town. And I'm going to miss the parade, I think, because I'm making my acting debut at the Peninsula Community Theater. I'm going to play a very bad fireman. And thank you to the Poquoson Fire Department for lending us some costumes. Lastly, we were working with the Poquoson Shores residents about some drainage issues, and I know that they've been informed, but just in case, I wanted everybody to know that while some of that may have been delayed because of the storm, Randy is still on that. And happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Tracy Jean.
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I think you're probably going to adequately address the thanks to the staff, so I'm going to defer all my comment time to you.
Well, thank you.
And I appreciate your guidance again through this very trying time for the city. So,
thank you, Gene.
Okay.
Thanks.
I guess I would echo Gene's sentiments, but I do think the city did an incredible job during this last storm. It was probably, I've been here for quite a while, and I don't remember a worse storm. I guess the thing that concerns me that has direct impact on the city is that all of the work that the city of Hampton had done down at Factory Point was lost during this northeaster. And I'm hoping that they can find a way, because it's lost money. I mean, the contractor had worked for a month and a half, and not only did he lose his equipment, but he lost all the sand that he had put back. So I'm hoping, from a federal standpoint, and I've talked to some of the councilmen down in Fox Hill, that there may be some stimulus or some federal money that can help facilitate that repair, because that's a very important project for the city, not only for the city of Hampton, but for the city of Poquoson. Probably another 90 days and we would have had the benefit of that point of land being there, but we didn't make it. And now my hopes are that we will find enough money, or the city of Hampton will find enough money to continue that project. So if there's anything that we as a city can do to help that, I know we will, but I think we need to keep that in our focus.
Sure. Me? Right.
A couple of things, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I think when we had the damage assessment meeting the Saturday after the Northeaster, you spoke very highly and rightly so of city staff and all the employees who worked through the storm effort. The CERT team was outstanding. I think staff spoke about the emergency management training that they had received after Isabel, and that gave them a lot more assurance in dealing with the effects of the Northeaster. So, and we talked about lack of funds or limited funds. I think that's really one area where the city manager needs to keep the staff trained on the latest in emergency management. We thought Isabel was going to be the last storm we're going to have, and we ended up with a Northeaster and one or two small ones in between Isabel and now. One thing that disturbed me, I guess, when we had the meeting with the damage assessment was the police chief was talking about one of his patrol officers, a woman walking through chest-high water down through, I guess, Poquoson Avenue onto Magnolia. And while, I think it's commendable, I think it's also dangerous for a single person, I guess, to be walking through that kind of high water. I would like to see us have either make arrangements to use, maybe private boats, from the citizens, or to work some kind of arrangement with, like, say, Casey, where in the event of storms, we could rent, either, some kind of jet ski or pontoon, something like that could carry 2 people down with first aid kits into the areas where perhaps an elder person is down there and needs assistance or whatever else. As you mentioned, the city is financially strapped and no extra dollars. And in I guess the 9 years I've been on council, the city has always held a Christmas party for staff. This year, the city employees are hosting their own party, and I want to thank those council members who anteed up their big paychecks for this month to help to cover the cost of the staff parties. And that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Kerry? Just a couple things, Mr. Mayor. City staff was just absolutely fabulous to this whole thing. And I want to extend that also to make sure that we include the schools in that. A very early decision on schools not are being closed, and I think that helped a lot. And they got out sandbags and things that protected a lot of stuff that otherwise wouldn't have been. So the city staff, like I say, absolutely fabulous, but I mean, we're talking about everybody when I say that. And the only other thing I have, just want to wish everybody out a very happy Thanksgiving. And I'll defer the rest of my time to you, Mr. Mayor. Tom?
Yes, I'd like to say that it was a very trying time. It came up unexpectedly. When I came down, I saw other members from council, saw a lot of the city staff really pitching in. The CERT team was amazing. The volunteers and the people I would call back here, and there was a certain optimism that we're going to work through this. We're going to find a way to make it happen. And it was a very professional way that things were done. And I think that reflects to some extent on Randy and the way that he led it. His first flood in Poquoson. Hopefully there won't be too many more. But one thing I'd like to ask Randy is we had talked a little bit about having in a couple of weeks having a meeting for lessons learned type of thing. You did have the hot wash right afterwards. If you could get the word out and let's have a lessons learned, because unfortunately this is probably going to happen again. We did an awful lot better. We did great during Isabel, but I think people did better this time because I know a lot fewer cars were lost. You knew not to mess around and get your car out even if you didn't know if it was going to come up or not and things like that. So if you could let us know when we can have a lessons learned type of thing.
Absolutely.
I would like to thank everyone who came tonight. It's been a long meeting. Wish everyone happy Thanksgiving and say that some of the comments that I've heard from the tragedy over this weekend, there's an awful lot of compassion in this town with that tragic event, and it goes without saying that we all feel very deeply saddened by what happened, and somebody who was out there helping and cleaning up. Bad things happen. It's not good. Mr. Mayor, that's
okay. Thank you, Tom. And I just echo what other members of council expressed here regarding the storm and how phenomenal the staff reacted to that in all departments. And Randy, as Tom pointed out, this was your first high water event, I believe, and I don't know that you could have done it any better if you'd rehearsed it. You led well. You led by example, and you're to be commended for that. But you also had a staff that was lost an awful lot of sleep, spent an awful lot of hours. And, you know, it's kind of what makes Poquoson Poquoson. We go back to that again, and we talk about many issues, and we beat condominiums to death, and we talk about stores, and we talk about houses. But, you know, what it's all about, and at least what urges me on in terms of serving, certainly got nothing to do with the $100 a month that the city pays me. But rather it has a lot to do when you witness this community and how it comes together in times of tragedy. The storm is certainly you know, one of those events, but closer to the point, I think, would be young Frank Gornick, who was just, you know, his life was tragically taken. And how this community and how this school system and how this council responded to that family and to those loved ones, I just don't think that happens anyplace else. And while we may have our differences, you know, I think we do it soundly, and I think we do it sanely, and I think we do it with the best interest of everyone concerned. There's no other reason to be on this side of the dais, and there's not any other reason to be on that side of the dais. You know, our job is to serve and to do the best job that we can, and this community in turn serves us well. It's a rare occasion when someone is disrespectful to members of council in an open session or at Farm Fresh or Food Line or wherever you may, you know, you may run into a citizen. But you know, we're happy to do that. We're happy to serve. That's what we want to do. And contrary to Mr. Roberts' letter, we don't do it because we're trying to gain anything. That's just absolutely absurd. But to the staff, those of you that are here tonight, to those of you that watch, phenomenal job. You know, this city would not operate without you. We just would not do that. You know, council has its place and its responsibility, but I can tell you the engine that drives this city is the staff. And they work hard for us, they work hard for Randy, and they work hard for every citizen in this community. And I'm just so delighted and so proud to be able to, you know, serve shoulder to shoulder with the staff that this city employs. They are phenomenal and absolutely second to none. And you know, as we ask for the motion to adjourn, unless anybody else has any comments, let me be clear about how thankful I am that we have a community, that we live in a community, that we share a community like we share and like we have, because you won't find this anyplace else. You won't find views exchanged civilly. You won't find people coming to each other's aid. You're just not going to find that. And so you do, and I do, live in, without doubt, the most unique atmosphere and the most unique people and the most unique city, in my opinion, in the universe. And we ought to all be thankful this Thanksgiving Day season regarding that. And council, I'm very thankful to each one of you for your service. Thank you for your counsel to me. Your opinions matter, and just thank you for the confidence and the trust that you show. I would not do this were it not for you and were it not for you folks. There would be no reason to do that. So let me just ask one other question. Did you want to comment? Because if you'd like to comment on Frank, we'd like to hear it.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm Travis Strickland. I've met a few of you before. I guess I don't have anything prepared, if you'll forgive me. I guess I represent the teenagers in the city when we're all deeply saddened by the loss of Frank Gornick. He was a good person. Frankly, I've never met him for more than a minute. I've met his brother often when I went to Poquoson High School. Very good family, very nice people, very respectful to everybody, and it's a loss that is deeply saddening everybody. I'm homeschooled now, but from when I keep up with my friends, they say the high school and the middle school was completely silent today. There was no noise making in the hallways like there always is, no gossip or anything, just complete silence for the most part. And I think it speaks for the youth of Poquoson that we live in a town that can be respectful to the family in a time like this. And that's all I got to say. Thank you for
Thank
letting
you,
me come up
Travis.
here.
Thank you. Job well done. And let me just say to council and to the community that I have visited the family on numerous occasions over the past couple of days, and have offered from this council and from this city anything that we can do that will help them in their time of grief. I just just kind of took my grandson this morning and both of my boys and want to hold them close to me, because that's just how fast it can happen. And so we have offered, and we will certainly stand behind that offer. If that family needs us for anything, we'll be here for them. Okay, with that, anybody else? Yeah,
I got one thing, Mr. Mayor. I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this past weekend, one of our local recreational football teams, the Back River Panthers, competed in the Peninsula District, and they were successful in winning the Peninsula District, competing against all the surrounding cities. And I don't want to call it, but it seems like to me this is 50 straight games that they've won, which is pretty incredible over 4 years for this group of individuals to be together and to accomplish a feat like that, especially in really tough competition. But they represented the city and were very successful.
All right. Just another reason that, that makes us proud of where we live.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made and second we adjourn. Ms. Wiggins, please.
Councilman Reed?
Aye.
Councilman Freeman?
Aye.
Councilman Krieger?
Aye.
Councilman Holloway?
Aye.
Councilman Hunt?
Aye.
Councilwoman Crawford?
Aye.
Mayor Hilson?
Aye.
Mr. Mayor, the motion carried by a vote of 7 to 0.
Thank you, ma'am, and we are adjourned.